SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, we welcome you to this lecture series on disaster recovery and build back better. This lecture is focusing on disaster risk communications. I am Shubhojyoti Samadar from Disaster Prevention Research Institute, Kyoto University, and we will talk about disaster risk communications. We know that disaster risk communication is very important because we need to motivate people to take preventive actions or preparedness against disasters. Let's say evacuations or using flood-resistant building materials, retrofitting the house. So why people should do it? Because they need to know that this is important and I should do it in order to protect myself from future disasters. Now, who are involved into this process? What is the meaning when there are two parties? One, they want to make people, increase people risk awareness. Another one is the people who are at risk of natural disasters. Now, these two parties has to interact, and there are other parties are also involved. So this process we called disaster risk communications. So let us look into the detail of this entire process, which we called risk communications or disaster risk communications. Risk communication, what does it mean when we say risk communication? Okay, so one, in risk communication or even in disaster risk communications, I'm talking in a more broader perspective, there should be one sender, like local government, okay? They want you to evacuate. And so there is first, in the disaster risk communications, we need one sender, okay? And what they do, they send message, informations, okay, about the risk and what can be done to people. So senders, they are sending informations to the people. They are the receivers. So there should be one sender, one receiver, and another important component is the message between. So sender and receiver, they should exchange information. Okay, exchange of information is critical between these two parties. So this is one of the basic components of risk communications. When we are talking about disaster risk communications, like flood, earthquake, so there should be an information about this. Now, when they are communicating, exchanging informations, two parties, senders and receivers, they are exchanging information. But information about what? What kind of information, when you are talking about risk communication, what kind of information they should share? Exchange. Is it kind of some hot topic of the town, like some gossip, or just day-to-day life they want to share with each other, like the colleagues or the neighbors or some co-workers, co-students they do? Or is it about my haircut, how I would look good? Is it about that one? Or is it about how to cook, what to cook, and or my travel plan to Singapore or to Sweden or Switzerland? So what kind of information they will share is very important to know. Okay? So exchange of information when we are talking between senders and receivers, no. In risk communications, they are not interested about your hairstyle, about your travel plan, or about your day-to-day life. In risk communication, in disaster risk communications, when we say we are exchanging informations, we are directly or indirectly talking about some particular hazards and risk. It could be a heart problem, it could be arsenic contaminations of groundwater and that's causing the cancers to the people, or it could be flood related issues, or it could be genetically modified food, like many people are nowadays exposed to genetically modified food and they are having a lot of health issues, or could be Fukushima nuclear plant that was devastated and a nuclear accident took place by 2011 earthquake and tsunami. And so we have senders and they are passing informations to the receivers and they have a message and they have exchange of informations. And this exchange of information is about risk. But when senders passing the information to the receivers, there is a motive. Do you know what is of this motive? What they want to do? If the sender is sending these informations to the receiver, he has a very particular motive when you are talking about disaster risk communication. The motive is the sender wants to change the mind of receiver. Okay? Change his mind, changed perception and changed behavior. So the sender wants that the receiver should have different perspective, a different behavior, different attitude once they would be successfully communicate with them. So it's not only a matter of exchange of informations, but sender wants to influence the receiver. So it is a purposeful exchange of information, purposeful exchange of informations between senders and receivers. So like media, like mass media, when they give you advertisement, they want to change you. They want to change your mind. They want to cover you in every way, every aspect. They want to brainwash you. This slogan is very clear. The intention is very clear. I want you to influence your decision. It's not that I am talking like a gossip or you are not listening to me or we are talking anything. No. In disaster risk communications, I am communicating with you because I have a reason, a purpose. And the purpose is very clear, that I want to change your mind. Okay? So your perception, when I say that what I want to change you, what is that? Your perception about risk, one, and also I want to change your attitude about preparedness. Suppose if there is an evacuation, I first tell you that, okay, you are at risk because cyclone is coming and you need to evacuate. So first I need to tell you that cyclone is coming and that is true. And I want to change your decision. And then I want you to evacuate from that place. Okay? So purposeful exchange of information in disaster risk communication is very important. Now, purposeful exchange of informations or purposeful informations, they are very different from the noise. When we say message, okay, in that case, the receiver or the informer, they intend to expose the target audience, that is the receiver, to a system of meaningful symptoms like I want you to spoon feed, I want you to change your mind. Okay, it's simply that I want to brainwash you. I want you to do what I think. Okay, that may change your perception or the image of the sender. So purposeful exchange of information. So one sender is there and he or she would like to change the mind of the receiver in the way they perceive the risk, their attitude about preparedness. So risk communication basically, primarily defined as purposeful exchange of information about some kind of risk. In our context, this is more about disaster risk, but it could be health risk, it could be environmental risk, it could be other risk. Okay, so between interested parties. So there are two interested parties. One is the sender and one is the receiver. They are affected, impacted by particular disaster or particular risk, and they have a information exchange, purposeful exchange of informations, and sender wants to change the mind of the receivers. Okay. Now, this is there are many definitions of risk communications. Of course, enormous number of definitions we have, but just for simplifications, we can take one which is more relevant for our course. And here we took that was given by Kovalov and Solvik and others in their study. And they are saying that risk communication is defined as any purposeful exchange of information about health, environmental risk between interested parties. In our case, as I said, it's not only environmental risk or health risk, it's also disaster risk. More specifically, risk communication is the act of conveying or transmitting information between parties. So it's an act of conveying some meaningful information between two parties. But when we are talking about that, they are purposeful exchange of informations. Okay, they are doing it, senders and the receivers. What they are talking about? What are the contents of that exchange of informations that we also like to know in risk communications? That what they are really talking about. Let us look. When we are talking about risk is a very funny word. Very, very funny word. People want to know that who is at risk. What ecosystem will be hampered? When you are saying that you are at risk because of the flood, because of the earthquake in this city, people do not want to believe you. They say that what do you mean that I will be impacted? Who are I? Okay, who are you? So you have to define that what extent this settlement and these people will be affected. So people have different perceptions about risk. So that's why it is very important to know. Like, if there is a news that our town has not had a murder since 1957, there could be this news, simply this news or this idea of risk. People have two different perspectives. The first person, if you look into the middle one, definition of an optimism, of looking into this. We are safe forever. Okay? So he believed that we are safe forever because that our town has not had a murder since 1957. So it is reasonably enough to assume that we are safe enough. But on the other hand, a pessimist thinks that we are due. That means something is coming here, right? That maybe next is me. So they are looking in a very negative way. So the stimulus is there, the same, but two people have two different perspectives or interpretations of the event, of the stimulus. So similarly, in case of risk, people have very different mindset, of different way of thinking. Here, look into this picture. Okay, you can see this boat is at risk, but the person in the other end thinks that we are not safe. He's in the same boat, but he thinks that okay, I am not at risk because the hole is not at my side; is in the other end. So if something happens, I will not be exposed. I will not be impacted. Okay. So who will be impacted? How will be impacted is very important for people. So when we are saying that exchange of informations, what is the meaning of content of that? What kind of content they should discuss? Of course, they are talking about risk, but what is what component of risk they are talking about. So that's we are talking, okay. So how many people want to know that you are talking that earthquake is coming, flood is coming, and your cities, but I want to know that how and how many of us will be affected by that one. If you have given a cyclone warning, people want to know, is it the entire city that will be affected, or is it any particular neighborhood or particular ward that will be affected, in particular settlements will be affected in a city, in a village, in a province. So is that how many of them will be affected is very important to tell people when we are communicating risk. Here is a very interesting data. Of course, it's not related to disaster, but it's saying that 1 in 8 living with HIV in US, they don't know. They don't know that they are infected. So, can you believe it? So 1 in 8 living with HIV, they don't know that they are infected. So how many people will be affected, what extent, is a critical, important message risk communication should provide. And not only how many or what extent, but people want to know that how that will hamper me, okay? What extent that will this will continue. Like she may be smoking. Well, I'm giving examples with not only in disaster context, it will help us to understand the broader perspective of understanding the risk and risk communication. So she is smoking, so maybe we can discourage her not to smoke. Now the question is, when we are communicating her to quit smoking, she is under the impression that, okay, I know many people who are smoking, but they are fine. But I know many people who are not smoker, but they are affected by cancer. So it is not necessarily that only those who are smokers, they will be affected by cancer, but also those who are non-smoker can also be affected by cancer, right? So how people take this data, this fact, and interpret them is a critical question. So when we are communicating risk, it is very important to tell people what extent, how extent they will be hampered by disasters. Okay, so how will they be hampered, and how much, and how long will their harm continue is important. In this cartoon, you can look that talking about the radiation issues, that whatever radiations our citizens are getting is no more than an X-ray. So somebody may be talking about Fukushima or other nuclear accidents, and they may be worried about the radiation impact. And so this government people, Japan government people in a cartoon is saying that the radiation, the way people are exposed actually is lesser than when they are having X-ray. So this is how people have different perspective about the risk. So in case of risk communication, as I said, risk communication is defined as any purposeful exchange of information about health or environmental risk between interested parties. More specifically, it is the act of conveying, transmitting information between parties about what? One is, what is they will talk is the level, okay? Is level of risk, what extent people will be affected. And the significance and the meaning of risk is important content. But is it enough if we only tell them the level of risk, that what extent they are going to affect it and what risk they are facing, what risk is imminent? Is this enough information in risk communications? No. Basically, no. Why no? When we are saying that, okay, we have risk analysis and risk perceptions, there is another question is looking into risk management. So look into this, that first maybe some scientific aspect doing that risk analysis part. But people have their own perceptions, as I gave the example that how people interpret different risk in different ways. But also that if you is simply putting your ear, that can help you to reduce this risk exposure. Okay, so these are of important information. So when we are talking about people that you are risk, suppose we are telling them that there is an earthquake, but a risk communication, if only they tell about this risk or hazard, this is not enough. We should also tell them that what they can do, what measures, actions, preparedness they can take to protect themselves. So if there is an earthquake, they can go under a desk or furniture to protect themselves. So this is just one simple example that how they can do it, and this message should be given to the people. Like if there is a tsunami, we tell people that okay, tsunami is coming. But if this information is not enough, it is incomplete information, we should also tell them that if they can evacuate to a higher place, like these people is showing that okay, you can go to a higher place to protect yourself. Okay, so risk communications is the content between two parties about discussing. One is the level of the risk, okay, and the significance and the meaning of risk, and also it is about the decision, actions and policies aimed at managing and controlling the risk. So these three components are important aspect of risk communications. Now we were discussing about the risk communication definitions and core ideas. Let us look what are the objectives of risk communications, what we really want to achieve from risk communication. Where here is, so we have sender and the receiver, and sender wants to send a message to the receiver, right? So it can be sent through coding and decoding. We can discuss this aspect in another lecture, but it should be sent through speaking, writing, graphics, videos, through different channels, right? At least one, and in this process there is an involvement of coding and decoding. Anyways, the important is that when the sender wants to say that, okay, I want to communicate with you. So if the sender is saying 6 and receiver perceives as 9, it's different, right? Let's say sender is sending 5, want to say that okay, this is 5, some code, and receiver decoded it as S. So what I mean by the sender and what I understand is important in risk communications. If I am sending 6 and if you are considering it as 9, if I am sending 5 and if you are considering it S, then it would not work, right? It would not work. So when we are codifying, if I want to say you tree, you should understand after the coding is as tree, okay? So sending the message from sender to receiver after coding and decodings should be same meaning. What I want to mean and what I understand should be same. An effective risk communication should have this component. Like here you look into this very interesting cartoon. It's saying this lady is asking this person that why you have only 40% of your umbrella is covered. This person is answering, because I received an early warning today and it's saying that there is a chance of rain 40%, and that's why only 40% of my umbrella is covered. So this is so interesting. So what the sender wants to do and what the receiver is interpreting is completely different, although data are same, right? Data are same. Or if this lady having some challenges, physical challenges, is at risk because there is a fire, and now you are saying to him that don't use the staircase because it is in fire, then she wants to say, what? Should I commit suicide now? So in case of objectives of the risk communication, one of the critical objective is to make sure that all receivers of the message are able and capable of understanding and decoding the meaning of message sent to them. So when senders are sending message to the receiver, they should able to understand and decodify the meaning that sender sent. Okay? The message should be very clear. And second objective is that when senders wants to send the receiver some message about a particular risk or a kind of some preparedness message, so he wants to change the attitude of the person. Okay, changing attitude is one of the critical component of risk communications. So senders, when sending the informations, he or she wants to change the mind of the receiver and changing their attitude to persuade the receivers of the message to change their attitude and their behavior with respect to specific cause or class of risk. Another important aspect, when sender is sending informations to receiver will be same time able to feedback what they understand, what are the concerns they have to the senders. So it should be in a more democratic reciprocal process. Like we can share our concerns in a summit or maybe just in a village meeting. So one of the key component objective of risk communication, disaster risk communication, is to provide a condition of rational discourse on risk issues so that all affected parties, okay, they can take part in an effective and democratic manner for conflict resolutions. If you have different opinions, you can share and you can resolve this conflict and come into consensus or agreed decisions. So that's all for today's lecture, this lecture. So thank you very much.